Okay, good evening, good morning, good day. Welcome to our first Zoom Bonds Hampton Roads video conferencing program. And usually what we like to do with every time we start our any type of event, I'm asking for a moment of silence. So if you could just kind of bow your head and think of those that are not with us today, especially those who left the Philippines, who came to America to put a roof over our heads, to give us food, to give us the opportunity to live in America and to enjoy the freedoms that this country has to offer. Okay, thank you. This is our program. We're going to start here as far as what this is. This is called Fanhs-Now. And you can just read it here. It's established to help meet the need for better collaboration and communication between FANHS chapters. The mission, FANHS-Now is curated by FANHS Hampton Roads chapter, is a video conferencing program that promotes and fulfills the mission of FANHS National through programming. And what is FANHS HR? That is our chapter, the FANHS Hampton Roads chapter. And you guys have copies of this. I'll just kind of scroll on down. And this is day one. We just had our orientation, and thank you, Alex Senna. And we're still claiming you, Alex, as a FANHS HR emeritus. So with that said, we're going to start off with a welcome by our chapter president, Mr. Raymond Obispo. Okay, Raymond. Ray?
All right. So we're the Filipino American National Historical Society. And let me just back up. My name is Ray Obispo. I am the president of FANHS Hampton Roads. I also served as a FANHS trustee for over 20 years. And I'm really excited about this. This was something that I guess Alan and Edwina have kind of thought up. And, you know, here we are now, just now, but FANHS now. So this is something that's absolutely new, in which FANHS for the first time is having something like this, in which we're all meeting and connecting and experiencing ourselves through technology in the 21st century. Alan kind of said it earlier about what the outline was. Today, we're going to be honoring a lot of the folks who left their legacy with FANHS, and also a legacy when it comes to Filipino American history in the United States. Day two is going to be chapter presentations. And then day three is about what we might do in the future when it comes to this format. A lot of us would have been coming down from that high from Hawaii right now. Unfortunately, we know what happened. But I think that with this new medium, you know, this is something that's really exciting. It's something in which we have not done before, and it's absolutely historic. So I implore for you guys to kind of think about those words and enjoy the presentations today. And we really want to keep this as fun and as light and as also as much as a connection with you guys as much as possible. When I saw everyone earlier today on the little boxes that we have in Zoom, I really wanted just all for us to be in the same room together and laughing and joking around and maybe having a couple of drinks, because that's how FANHS really is when it comes to celebrations. But we'll save that for maybe a later day. But right now, we have FANHS now. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? Okay, next up is our FANHS National Director making her debut on Zoom, Auntie Dorothy. Everybody, can she see you guys clap? No. Anyway, Auntie Dorothy, you're up.
Sure.
Uh,
Oh, no.
Well, actually, I've been saying hello to a lot of people, so I was going to give a greeting to those I haven't said hello to. It's nice to be in touch with you, even though it's kind of remote, or it's a virtual connection. Um, this is Ellen's way of connecting during this period of social distancing. And actually, I think it's a way of taking the place of the Hawaii conference, which we were supposed to have had last week. And so I applaud you, Ellen, for this wonderful way of doing it. It's a unique time of history, even for those of us who remember and lived through the Great Depression. A few of us have. World War II, the civil rights marches and protests, and the anti-war movements during the 1960s and the 1970s. We all took part of it. Filipinos were very much a part of all of this. And this pandemic now has touched the whole world and changed actually the way that we're living and the way that we're going to work and interact with one another. So I'm just saying, since the whole concept of FANHS is to gather, document, touch, share and disseminate Filipino American history, it's time for us to document these very important times around the world. How do we feel? What are we doing? How are we doing things with each other? How do we connect? And then whatever we're doing, if we're documenting it, then future FANHS members will read our experiences long after we're all gone. And that's the only thing that I have to say. So, Ron, did I come within my 2 minutes?
You did great.
You did great.
Yeah, I told you I can do it.
Very good, Auntie Dorothy. All right. That's very, very encouraging. Actually, it's kind of inspirational to see Auntie Dorothy on Zoom and making her debut in front of us. So thank you, Auntie Dorothy, for even giving us permission to even explore this venue. And I hope you stick around, enjoy, and thank you for being here. Next up, we have Patricia Brown, who is the Hawaii FANHS National Conference Chair, and she would like to share with you some of the, how she feels. Go ahead, Patricia. Patricia? She was here earlier, wasn't she? Well, while we go find somebody, go find Patricia. Oh, there you are. Okay, good. You're up.
Well, that's the result of a bottle of wine on my desk and a glass of wine on my desk, because I'm still picking myself off of the dirt. Hi, everyone.
Hey, aloha.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing and acknowledging Hawaii State's chapter's efforts during the past 2 years, Alan. We were so excited about working towards creating the FANHS Conference 2020. It was a memorable roller coaster experience. Our committee faced both joyful and complicated challenges, as a lot of you know. We had a fantastic statewide 6 plantation island and committee members from 5 states, Hawaii, California, Washington, Virginia, and Texas, all helping. Every team member of our committee rolled their sleeves up and worked on what needed to be done to create an extraordinary FANHS conference, and we hope to acknowledge all of this information in our newsletter and send it to all of the chapters later. Throughout the entire 2.5 years, we received a lot of ongoing, genuine support and encouragement from our FANHS Executive Director, and Dorothy, thank you so much. Other chapter members and statewide community members. As a result of everybody's creative efforts, contributions, and work, 6 months before the conference, we began to feel a high level of excitement as the plan's pieces began to fall into place well ahead of schedule. But on February 15, 2020, midnight, people were still registering to meet the early bird deadline. And at this point, Ron and I realized that we were going to probably hit 800 people. We were so amazed at how many people were looking forward attending Hawaii 2020. The dream that Ron had actually of bringing 800 people together was no longer, it didn't seem unreachable anymore for me. But at the same time, we were already discussing the possibilities of canceling FANHS 2020 due to COVID-19, as you all know. But if we canceled at that point, FANHS National would have been liable for over $250,000 in fees. So we paused and waited for a timely force majeure moment. And that came later on March 17th. We informed all the attendees and the presenters of the conference cancellation during and returned hundreds of refunds. In a matter of days, we went from believing that we could have an extraordinary conference ready for everyone to a conference that would be remembered for a very long time, but not for the reasons we hope. Instead, it would be remembered for unexpected, God-given reasons. And since we're not able to put out the souvenir book planned, which would have included some of the amazing histories from each of the islands, FANHS historical moments, etc., our gratitude page and our follow-up work, we're looking forward for another way to do this, perhaps in a newsletter forwarded to each chapter. It'll be a while because right now we're on hiatus, and since Ron hasn't clapped the sticks together, I can't believe I got some time left. But I do want to thank all of you. As I listened to all of the voices up until this point, I realized that you were all part of the support team that we all needed. I haven't mentioned the names of the people that were part of our close circle that did so much to keep the spirits up, get the work done, offer their creative ideas. I will do that in the newsletter. I didn't think that I had time to do that. But some of you are on this right now, and just know that I am so grateful for all of your efforts and your support and your good, kind words. I hope, Auntie Dorothy, if you're still there, that you got both of the checks. So FANHS Hawaii doesn't owe anybody any money. We got out of this real nice and clean. And Alan, you had you sure I didn't go over the 2 minutes? Seems like I did. Alan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing. I'm just waiting for Ron. He's the timekeeper.
Okay, Alan, I want to thank you for doing what you're doing here, because truly, my spirits were down and I'm back up to speed, starting the next chapter for FANHS Hawaii State, which is putting out 2 more books, history books for Hawaii's Filipinos. We had some really amazing things to present, and some of that is going to hit the books, and we'll look forward to sharing that. And Auntie Dorothy mentioned the regional, so maybe that's a possibility. We'll see. But in the meantime, thanks for doing this, Alan.
Okay, thank you. And in chat, can everybody, say thank you to Patricia here? So go in chat and just give her some, props, because she took 2.5 years out of her life, to put this doggone thing together, and it was going to be the biggest, the best in everything, including the food, which I heard was free. But anyway, moving on. Would be our FANHS Legacy Month. Okay, let me see if I could switch this. Can you? Did the screen switch? Anybody? Okay, FANHS Legacy Month. Okay, it basically identifies the creators and contributors of the FANHS Legacy. Each honoree is identified by designated specific days in their name during the month of October. Now, see, we came up with this idea of our chapter because usually when you have you've done something great, you either get a piece of paper, a certificate, which is fine, a trophy, which is good. But this is a historical society, so we figure, how about if we honor you by giving a day to celebrate, so that we'll always remember you on that day. And that's why we came up with this FANHS Legacy Month. Now, not anybody could, be on this, could qualify for a day. So we had to make these requirements pretty stiff. But in the beginning, Auntie Dorothy goes, well, don't make it too hard. We need to have some people in there. But anyway, this is the modified standards now, so that in order to even get on FANHS, to get a day, this is what you need to have. It's only up to paid members of FANHS for 25 years. You have founded or developed a FANHS chapter. You published a work on the Filipino-American experience. You helped host, organize, and work on a FANHS national conference. You attended at least 10 FANHS national conferences. You served as an officer. You mentored an individual who eventually and successfully developed an intergenerational program. You were a speaker and presenter of at five FANHS national conferences, and you must have 90% endorsement from previous honorees. Now that's pretty high standards. And it's been a while since we added to the FANHS Legacy Month, and we have a surprise today. Mr. President, Ray Obispo. Ray.
So, Patricia Brown, you've done so much when it comes to planning the Hawaii conference, and we know that circumstances globally didn't allow that to happen. A lot of us were looking forward to that, and I didn't realize that we're getting up to 800 people for that conference. That's just a staggering amount of folks who showed interest, and that's just a testimony to your hard work, you and your committee in Hawaii and other places too. So with that in mind, for 2 years of hard work and commitment to making the 2020 FANHS National Conference potentially the biggest and best ever, only to be canceled because of a historic worldwide pandemic, on behalf of FANHS HR, we designate October 30th as Patricia Brown Day as a way of acknowledging your effort, and it's something that will always be greatly appreciated and never be forgotten. So we have a day for you now, Patricia, which is October 30th. Thank you so much for your work.
Congratulations, Patricia Brown. And in chat, can you guys please, say woo, 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 woo,
Just unmute. Congratulations. Well deserved.
Okay, yeah. Let's unmute. Come on, people. Can we unmute?
Awesome job.
Congrats.
Good job, Patricia.
Thank you so much, everybody. But this is the one time that I do want to mention another name, and that's Ron Buenaventura. He was the one that said 800, and I said, "You're nuts. We're not going to do that." He said 800, and as we closed the early bird registration, it began to look like we really could do it. So, Ron should have another one of his days someday too. Or I can share mine with him. But,
Okay.
thank you, everybody. I can now go off the wagon and have another glass of wine.
Okay. Thank you.
Patricia. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now moving on. This portion of the program is we're going to be honoring people that are no longer with us, but have days in the FANHS Legacy Month. And we're going to go through this here. And Joni, are you there, Joni? Joni Cordova?
Yes, I am.
Okay, she's up, and this is Helen Brown.
Okay.
And you could just read here real quickly. She was a FANHS trustee emerita, first Filipino-American woman to graduate from UCLA in 1937. And she's a direct descendant of a Thomasite, and she's a retired educator for the Los Angeles Public Schools. So Helen Brown.
So I'll build on what Alan said. And Helen Brown, Akawili Summers Brown, Uncle Fred always told us to use full names, was born in 1915, and she's the daughter of a Thomasite. When she graduated with a BA, with an MA from UCLA, it's believed that she's the first, perhaps the first Filipina to graduate from UCLA. And it was at UCLA where she met her husband, Bill Brown. And it turned out they ended up being married in Boulder, Nevada, because of the anti-miscegenation laws. Her father had left her with a large personal collection of books that she felt was important to share. So in fact, Tanya Azores says, she realized the importance of her library she inherited from her father and began to build on it, collecting books, pamphlets, newsletters, newspapers, clippings, and even the souvenir programs. So in her mind, there was nothing too insignificant when it came to preserving the social history of Filipinos in the US. So she founded first the Filipino American Reading Room and Library that started out in a room at the Filipino Christian Church. Roy Morales helped her set it up there. And this eventually became the Filipino American Library. In 1990, she hosted the first meeting of what eventually became FANHS LA in 1993. And Emily Lawson, she was a mentor to many, especially as a mestiza. She inspired others who felt very affirmed that she was comfortable and identified with both sides. And she was active as United Teachers of LA. And they say not only was she a teacher and librarian, a Lola, she's like a Lola and a grandmother who gave birth to several generations of Pinoy students and community activists.
Okay. Thank you,
yes.
Joni.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Ben Menor here. Ben, okay, it's not here. Anyway, we have here is Elizabeth Mahino. And again, you could find that these descriptions in the other link upstairs or above us. But basically, she was an integral part when we were going to conferences in the early days. She was always like the lady with the camera, and her trusty sidekick, her husband, for many, many years. And she was just an amazing lady to know that she attended these conferences, and you would always count on her being there. And just, you know, and to lose her is like it's like another part of our history as far as our legacy is concerned. These are her daughters, and I believe she even mentioned a couple of people that she helped go through. I thought I saw. Where did I see that? Oh, there it is, Allison. Allison knows her, and she helped Allison, you know, helped her out, and also with other people, Barbara Jane and Abraham Ignacio. So that's Elizabeth Mahino. Next up, again, Joni, we have Angel Magdael Day. Joni.
That is Auntie Letty's picture. I had sent another picture of Angel Magdal and family. So that is Auntie Angel's sister, Letty, who's very much alive. But Angelina Bantillo Magdal is the eldest of immigrant parents. So she's second generation, and she was the eldest of the born in San Francisco in 1934. She's part of the extended Bantillo clan that spanned 6 generations. Their reunions now have 5 generations present, including Ray Townsend, who's a grandson, and who is a nephew, but he's a grandfather. So there are 5 generations in the house. So Angel, as a youth, some of her jobs included working at the Lafayette lunch counter in Little Manila that was owned by Pablo Mabalon. And she also worked at the Filipino Agricultural Labor Association, telling us she typed with carbon paper. And that was run by Mr. Sebastian Inosanto, Danny's father. And she became a charter member of the historic Trinity Presbyterian Church that was once the Filipino Christian Fellowship in Little Manila. Its members included Larry Itliong. And I remember that Mary and Angel were telling stories, and Sebastian were telling stories about how the church members cooked and served farm workers during their historic strike by Fala in 1939. She and served as the founding treasurer of Filipino Oral History Project, Inc., with Mary Inosanto as the first president, that published Voices, where 100% of all sales returned to the community in scholarships and to support other projects. In 2000, she attended the FANHS National Conference in Virginia Beach, where she received a Lifetime Achievement Award that read, "For Timeless Compassion." And during the presentation by Filipino American Cultural Society of Salem High School, who dramatically read excerpts from her oral history, everyone in the banquet was moved to tears. And she showed this compassion as she served the church and larger community throughout her entire life as a beloved sister, mom, auntie, grandma, godmother, and mentor to so many. So we hope to embrace that spirit today.
Thank you, Joni. And Joni is chiming in from someplace in the Philippines. What town is that?
It's called Dumaguete. It's the home of the American University, Silliman University, where I've been a visiting professor.
Okay, thank you, Joni. Now, next up we have Alicena, and Janet Alvarado would be doing a tribute. Janet Alvarado.
Hi, Alan. Hi, everybody from San Francisco. Thank you very much for having me do this honor for Albert Asena. I'm sorry we're not in Hawaii, so I'll just try to condense everything as quickly as possible and speak more from a personal level for this wonderful historian, wonderful mentor, and just a prolific human being. So Albert is from Seattle, and I met him via route of this pet project I had in the 90s through Alan Bergano and to Dorothy Cordova. And that was, again, a chance meeting. And if you all know, you could read through the bio and click through the links of our page, and you'll connect the dots and know that he was also a professor here in San Francisco or in the Bay Area for over 41 years. So I'm sure I'm not unique in that he loved to teach history. And I think the biggest vignette for Albert and I in this journey of life and through FANHS was to create something called the Alvarado Project together. Not only was he a good friend, he became part of this family. And I thank you for that, Auntie Dorothy. And the last time we were together was in Seattle to say farewell to Albert. The day after my mother's birthday, November 22 of 2019. So I'm proud to say that Albert and I are from the same generation. I'm a little bit younger. He's a founder and a trustee for FANHS National. He's also the founding father for this project, the Alvarado Project. A little bit background, if you didn't already read it in his bio, his parents came early on and were nurses, and they settled in Seattle. Albert loved Europe. He loved France in particular. He also served in the United States Army. And the two things I asked him for was his scrapbook of Germany, which I have with me. His niece was kind enough to let me have it. I asked for it. And a small perpetual of help, Mother Mary's tile that he had on his doorway in the same apartment he lived in for all these years in the Bay Area. So in closing, finally, I guess for Albert, I couldn't even utter words at either of his services here in San Francisco and in Seattle, because I was just so dumbfounded. He's been a very big part of my life. And I love him very, very much. And I'm very proud to be called his friend, his mentee. And I guess I will end by saying, I have never met a man that was so humble, so brilliant, not only a scholar, but so generous to give his knowledge. And I'm very proud to say that if I didn't have him all these years, I don't think I would have made it through the front gate of a lot of things. He was very proud of me. And I think that's the most precious thing that I could say about Albert, is that he was just a shining star in our world. And I will miss him very much. And I hope to come back at the next conference and give him the due proper time frame of honoring him and paying him tribute. So thank you for letting me speak about Albert. And I look forward to tying in more stories about Albert together with you all at the next conference when we meet. God bless. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. And that reminds me, if you guys wanted to do tributes also, you could put that in chat, and that would be also greatly appreciated. Okay. Next, we have Dr. Virgilio Palapio, who is, everybody got to remember that clique we have down here, that he's the one that did the research on the hot dog, on how the Filipinos had the influence on naming the hot dog. But Virgilio was a physician, but he's also a great historian. And he was the editor of the FANHS Journal since 1990. And we would have saw him in Chicago, but unfortunately he got ill and he passed during that year. But Dr. Palahio Virgilio, thank you for your service in FANHS. We love you, we miss you. Ray Alejandro, Joey Tobacco, you're up.
Hi, this is Joe Tobacco from Metro New York. I was asked by Dr. Kevin Nadal to fill in for him since he couldn't be here. And I never really met Ray. He had gotten sick by 2004 when I joined FANHS, so he wasn't taking any visitors. So I'll just read what's in the archives of FANHS National. Ronaldo Gamboa Alejandro, known as Ronnie to his friends, and Ray to me, was the founder of the Metropolitan New York chapter of the Philippine American National Historical Society. He was the author of several books, including Sayaw Siligang, The Dance of the Philippines, Philippine Dance, Philippine Cookbook, The Flavor of Asia, and the Pinoy Guide to the Big Apple, as well as the co-author of the book Pinoy York, which was actually published with the chapter. He was also a dance choreographer who, side note here, my sister and my wife, before I even knew her, back in the 70s, were actually an event that he was the choreographer for. So there's the connection there. He was a director, a dance and culinary historian, a librarian who actually started the FANHS library, a chef, party planner, and columnist. In 2009, he died in New York City at 67 years old.
Thank you, Joey. Domingo Los Banos, Alex Fabros. Alex Fabros. Okay, Alex. Patricia, would you like to say a few words there, Patricia or Edwina?
I got it. I just had to
Oh, there you
get
are.
unmuted there.
Alan?
Yeah.
Alan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Alan, this is Patricia. Yes, I really would like to say something about Manong Domingo. He was such a beautiful human being. We spoke a lot, and the last week of his life, he called me 3 times that week, and we had long discussions about some of the things that he would have liked to have had done and some of the things that he did do. He had an amazing sense of humor. I wasn't expecting this, so I don't have all the factual things that you probably would like to hear, but he was a beautiful, beautiful human being. and an example of what he was like and what people thought about him was demonstrated at his memorial services. The church was overloaded. I mean, the people standing outside, the important people that were there. It was just absolutely amazing. The one thing that he, aside from being religious, the one thing that he was really humble about was getting the history of the Filipino Americans, the local Filipino Americans, the Filipino Americans, I mean the Filipinos that became Filipino Americans through the plantation field. His family was from Kauai. He was very concerned about our history and it not disappearing in the way that so many other pieces of history disappear. And so for this conference, he was one of the three people, one of the three historians that Hawaii has for the Filipino histories that we were going to honor. And we're putting out another book, and we're hoping that we're planning to have him in there, and we're hoping that people will come to know him even as he passed. There were so many wonderful things about him, and it'll be in the book. This is unexpected for me, so I don't have any particular notes left, but beautiful,
Okay.
beautiful human being.
All right.
Thank you for having him on this list.
Thank you. Moving on. We have a Don Gamari and Helen Nagtalo Miller. In 1994, we had our very first FANHS video entitled Filipino Americans Discovering Their Past for the Future, and that YouTube link here is the actual movie. And Don and Helen were two of the people and all that were on there. So was Alex Fabros and Uncle Fred. But he basically, I met him through his work in Alaska. And this is the book that he wrote down here. And he's an amazing historian when it came to Alaska. And again, let me call on Patricia, on Helen. You want to say something there? Patricia? Did you? Patricia? Patricia Brown on Helen Nagtalo Miller, who was a scholar from the plantations. And so you can read about her right there. And unfortunately,
can you hear
there?
me?
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. Well, we're about to go, so
Okay,
go
good.
ahead.
Helen Nagtalo Miller and Manong Domingo were very good friends. They both work at the plantation. So this is quite an honor for me to talk about both of them at the same time. Helen Nagtalo Miller was a quiet woman. She was born June 27, 1928, and in a plantation hospital. She died in her home in Kahalu, Oahu, in 2014, March 2nd, at the age of 85. She had a passion for learning. She attended Waipahu Public School, earned her bachelor's in education for English and music from the University of Hawaii in 1950. She studied at the French, at the Sorbonne in Paris in 1962. She had a Master of Art degree in French interestingly from the University of Hawaii in 1967, and a PhD in foreign language. Now, what did she do with all of this? Helen was a public school teacher at several elementary schools. She worked from K through high school. She was seemingly a very soft-spoken, direct speaker with a really nice sense of humor. For as long as I've known her, almost 14 years, she was also, she was in a wheelchair and could, legally blind. But she was also very firm and convincing activist for affirmative action, bilingual education, civil and women's rights. And to Helen influenced and inspired a lot of students and a lot of colleagues. And when I first came back to Hawaii, she wanted to speak with me, and she said, you and I are the only two doctors from the plantation. That was a shock to me. But she had a way of inspiring people in her quiet voice. She as a result of that, I spent a lot of time working at volunteering at Plantation Village, and she also influenced me with FASO. She was one of the founding members, and as a result, I was with FASO as president for 8 years in honor of Auntie Helen. I've written about her biography in one of the books that's out there, Filipinas, honoring the Filipinos first generation Filipinas from Hawaii. And her story is in there. I hope you all get a chance to read it. It's a beautiful story. But yeah, beautiful woman, and I miss her. A lot of us, we miss her.
Thank you. Next, we have Thelma Buchholz and Titania. You're here, right, Titania?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. You're up.
My mother, my mother was Thelma Garcia Buchholz. She was born in 1934 in a small fishing village on the north coast of Luzon, near the Babuyan Islands. She was raised by her Ilocano grandmother. In 1951, she left home to attend college in California through the sponsorship of her mother's brother, Uncle Fermin de Leon. Uncle Fermin was a Manong who had arrived in America in 1921. And after serving in the 1st Filipino Infantry in the 1940s, he became well established in Las Vegas, Nevada as a very successful casino restaurant chef. My mother sought to make the world a better place through her service to her community. She became the Honorable Thelma Buchholz when she was first elected to public office in 1974 in Anchorage, Alaska. She was a highly effective state legislator. After she established the Asian Alaskan Cultural Center and the Alaska chapter of FANHS, she served National FANHS as president for 3 consecutive terms. She was also the author of the book Filipinos in Alaska, 1788 to 1958.
Okay, thank you. As a side note, I first met Titania. Well, I didn't meet Titania then, but see, your mom, dad, they both graduated in law school from the University of Washington, D.C. And you also, the same year, Titania graduated at Georgetown.
That's right.
And Thelma was our keynote speaker at the University of Maryland when we did our Pinoy symposiums back in 1992. And so to meet all 3, at the same time in Washington at the University of Maryland was very, very enlightening. So thank you, Titania, for that tribute. Next, we have
Alan, could you take a step back and let Alex Fabros give his?
Oh, we're going to do that later.
Okay, no.
He's going to do that later.
You got it.
Okay, then we have Joe Montano, Ray Obispo.
Sorry. So back in the 90s, I guess there was a rebirth of Filipino American consciousness with people who were born in the late 60s, early 70s. And so in the 90s, we had actually a lot of people on the Zoom call I met during that era in which there was a whole lot of energy of reclaiming our identity and also reclaiming our history. And Joe Montana was definitely part, squarely in the middle of all those different movements. Not only did I meet Joe in the FANHS conference in New York in 1996, he was very active with FILCRA, the veterans, the Filipino veterans FINE conferences up and down the East Coast. Later on, he became the National Executive Director of NAFA. He also later in 2016 became very, very involved with Tim Kaine's candidacy for vice president. And Joe, mentored me really in a lot of what I experienced in part of the Filipino American and even the Asian American movement back then. He was never at a loss for words. And you ask him one thing and he, we need Ron's kind of like little gongs for him to stop talking because he'll just keep talking. But the one thing that I really know about Joe and I remember about him is that he brought people absolutely together. He was somebody who connected people, and he connected people in a way that was very real and very genuine, and also somebody who really had a tremendous amount of kindness for everyone and also people that he was around. And I miss him very, very dearly, not only as somebody who, walks hand in hand with Filipino American history and also a lot of these different things that are going on politically and also society, but, just being a good friend. And not only did Joe know about, the importance of Filipino American history, he knew anything about music as well. When Prince died in, I don't know, maybe 2016, I called him and he didn't even say hello. He just immediately went into song about Purple Rain, and we just had a little duet about Purple Rain when he died. So I miss Joe a lot. I wish he was still around, and I know a lot of us feel the same way. So Joe Montano, thank you so much. And in honor of Joe, I'm drinking an El Guapo beer because he loved this back in Virginia. This is one of the breweries that was around in his hometown. So here's to you, Joe. Toast. And if you're drinking, let's do a toast to Joe.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, Joe. Okay. Joni, you're back up with Sam Balukas.
Okay. So, Edward Samuel Balukas was born in 1932, one of 8 siblings, and his siblings included one, Fred Cordova, the FANHS founding president. He's also part of the bridge generation, and many young people meeting him would say, wow, he doesn't have an accent. But the bridge generation, as we know, were born to pioneer immigrants before 1945. So he was FANHS LA chapter founding treasurer 1993, a 2-term FANHS LA chapter president, and a national trustee and treasurer, and re-elected FANHS LA chapter president in 2006. In 2007, in June, he traveled to Philadelphia on a red eye, even if he had to be in a wheelchair at times, to attend the FANHS National Trustees meeting. And that was only one of 3 East Coast events for FANHS. Our FANHS National Vice President, Emily Porciuncula Lawson, recalls meeting Uncle Sam as a graduate student at UCLA and wrote a poem in tribute to him on the day he died in October of 2007. So she says, this is a poem for Uncle Sam, who drove me up and down long and short paths, crossing highways and building roads, to his bridge generation and so many more in the Southland. The only way a Pinoy could. Oh, 20 seconds, okay. Sam was more than our president, treasurer, monong brother, uncle, friend, cook, taxman, fisherman. He was our dad too, who gave birth to a whole new generation of Los Angeles Pinoys, and definitely Pinoys, who are proud to share history, who blessed the day we first met in his kitchen.
Thank you, Joni. And you're up here again with Fran Alahu Molnak. Joni.
Okay. So Fran was born in Chicago. She's also 2nd generation and served as FANHS National Treasurer, as well as Treasurer for FANHS Midwest chapter. And she has a long history of civil rights activism and studied at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. I know she was like a cheerleader in high school at that time as 2nd generation. And when I saw her at actually she told me that she wanted me to be at the FANHS San Diego conference because she said, Joni, it could be my last. And when she got there, she was in a walker. And she said, others were in walkers too. And she said, let's race. We're going to race. and she said she just might come back for the next conference. She also was with Judy Pataxel after the FANHS Alaska conference. We went on an Alaskan cruise. She was encouraged by her sons to join us. And she laughed when Judy and I ran out early in the morning to go see the glaciers. We just didn't want to miss the opportunity to see the glaciers. And of course, she just stayed in her bed, knowing that we would see the glaciers for the next 6 days. So that was fun, always with a sense of humor, and dancing and partying was how we'll remember her, as
Good.
well as being serious.
Thank you, Joni. Thank you, Fran. Next up, this is, Dawn Mabalan. Go ahead, Allison, if you're still here.
Hi, can I share my screen?
Okay, I don't know how to do it. You just, Alex.
You have to make me co-host, or you have to let everybody share their screen.
Okay, so do I stop share here?
Yeah, you can stop. You'll stop sharing for the moment, Doc. And then,
okay.
If she doesn't have the capability to share, since we might have changed it on the settings.
Okay, so I make you a co-host. Is that?
I'm good. I can share now. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Hi.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. I don't need to introduce Dawn to this group at all. So I decided I would just read a piece for her. Y'all know Dawn was very fire. Can everybody mute? Thank you. Dawn was fire, and a trigger warning, there's some profanity in here. And Dawn would say, don't excuse yourself, just do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this piece for Dawn. It's called What It Would Be Like to Be Quarantined with You, dedicated to Dr. Dawn Buhulano Mabalon. What would we be doing right now? Let's be real. We would be talking ish and proving chismis with footnotes, hella breaking it down, not just in words, using strategic and symbolic interaction, spitting media literacy expertise, reading tone in emails and wondering if anyone knows what the fuck they're talking about. Using our lowest professor voices, we would argue in poetic baliktasans about some leftist nuanced debate with neoliberal tendencies. Then laugh at the right because they think they're right. We would create cognitive maps showing the connections between police violence against Black lives with the inhumane anti-terror law in the Philippines that will just cause more state-sanctioned killings. Our conversations would go from theoretical diatribes to some funny dumbass shit that we saw on Netflix. Then we would exchange YouTube knitting tricks. Then we would make voodoo dolls and burn them and construct an excessive amount of terrariums. And then you would bake and I would cook. Always too much for just ourselves, making baon for family, friends, and students. Our baon always came with a recipe. Baon always came with a story. Baon always came with a history lesson and an engaging activity. We always had something to share and something to teach. What it would be like to be quarantined with you. I would never go hungry. I would never be bored. I would never lose hope. I would always have someone to hang out with. I would always have someone to fight with. I would always have someone who would understand the grays growing from the crown of my head. I would never be alone, and I would never have to miss you like I do. So that's Dawn, everybody. She would have passed 2 years from August 10th. I miss her dearly. I struggle with this every day. But she left so much for us to live and learn with. And so I just want to say thank you, Dawn. I know you're up there laughing at me right now. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you've given to all of us.
Thank you, Allison. And once again, you could give your tributes, put it in chat, and I'm pretty sure Don would appreciate that. Let me get back here. Again, yeah, this is a tough one. And this is taken in Seattle. And this is Carlos Bullison's great headstone in Seattle. Where is Uncle Fred and Joni there? Next up is Auntie Terry Jamero. Uncle Pete, you're up, Uncle Pete. Uncle Pete Jamero. Unmute, or anybody see him?
Am I on?
There you go. You're on. Unmute.
Okay. What about my picture? Is my picture on?
It's on.
Really? Okay.
Can you see? It's on, right? People?
No, his picture's not on.
I didn't think so.
No, he has
I
to
see it.
undo start video.
Oh, okay. You got to bear with me. I'm an old guy here, probably the oldest. I'm sure I'm the oldest.
There you are.
Am I on? Oh yeah.
I can see you. I can see you.
I hope my time now is not too shortened by my messing around with equipment. But it is my honor today to pay homage to my late wife. It's hard to believe that she's been gone now for 11 years. We were together for 55 years. And in that time, I think you folks all know this, we were parents to 6 wonderful children. But let me just talk a little bit about her contributions to FANHS. I know many of us were there for the birth of FANHS, but I think that Terry was there even before that. In the early 1980s, Dorothy called a small group together in Seattle to talk about an idea she had. The idea, of course, was FANHS. And from there, Terry became a charter member, not surprisingly. That was in 1982. In 1984 and 1985, she served on the president's cabinet. In 1984 to 88, what's that, 4 years, she served as the national treasurer. All of this time, there was not even a board of trustees. That didn't happen until 1986. In 1986, until 2001, Terry served on the board of trustees. In 1988 to 1990, she became the national vice president.
You better get ready. Make
Very
sure you're
next term,
talking to the mic.
I'm sorry? Am I not talking into the mic? Hello?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. In 1990 to 94, she served 2 terms as national president. Those were wonderful years, a lot of growth for FANHS. She presided over 2 national conferences. The first, of course, was in New York City, the farthest at that time that FANHS ever had a national conference. And obviously it was the very first conference in New York. The second conference she presided over was in 1994, which was, its theme that year was honoring the bridge generation. And if I may, I'd just like to comment that it's appropriate that I mention the bridge generation because so many of the folks that have been honored here today are from that generation, including yours truly. At any rate, that that conference in 1994 was one of the most successful conferences ever, artistically and financially. And I would just like to make one other comment about her presidency. During her presidency, she worked very hard to increase the number of chapters and was able to bring 14 new chapters into FANHS. I think that's a record for this organization. And finally, I would just like to make one comment. I want to make a little reference to what many of us have witnessed in the last few days, and that is the homage that's been made to John Lewis. He was called, of course, the conscience of the Congress. Many years ago, Fred and Dorothy conferred upon Terry a similar title, and that title was the conscience of FANHS. And I think for good reason. Terry was always able to make sure that the mission and the purpose of FANHS was always in front of us. And she did not let it interfere with other things like folks mistaking us FANHS for heritage and things like that. That's just one example. But she richly deserved that designation. In 2001, the Board of Trustees made it official and honored her with a plaque that simply said, the conscience of FANHS. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Pete. And finally, the man himself, Uncle Fred Cordova. And Edwina, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I hope, Alan, is it okay? Uncle Fred was a very special person, and he impacted many people throughout his lifetime. But for me, I'm just going to read what I prepared because it was really hard for me to pinpoint. His life is just amazing. But I was blessed to have known Uncle Fred, which started 43 years ago as a young student at the University of Washington. He was truly my mentor and showed me the path to know what it means to do community work at the grassroots level. I learned that the actions of today will lead a better tomorrow. You just have to have a vision and know your path know the path that you will take in life. I was there when Uncle Fred and Auntie Dorothy worked together with the first book project, Filipino Forgotten Asian Americans, published in 1982. I was there when Marina Espina presented her research about the Manila Men in Louisiana. I was there when the papers were being drafted to file corporation papers for the Filipino American National Historical Society with the state of Washington. Uncle Fred was there to officiate our wedding. There is no greater gift in life than giving of yourself so that you know that the next generation will carry the same dream. Thank you, Uncle Fred, for providing the pathway to realize that our lifetime of investment in our communities and our families are the greatest gifts of life. Uncle Fred meant a lot to me, and so is Auntie Dorothy. And it's just really amazing how this generation has impacted my life, and I continue to strive and give the same passion to our community, because if we don't continue to do so, we will never have a community that still carries the mission of caring of each other and educating our sisters and brothers so that we can live a better world and still fulfill the mission of FANHS. Thank you.
Okay, that was beautiful, Edwina. Well, that concludes our program here. And let me just say that we did it in an hour, which is pretty amazing. And what I'd like to also add is we have 2 more days of doing this for an hour. Tomorrow we're going to have our chapter showcase. I hope you guys could come check out to see, you know, who's up and what's it about. And we've got.
Is there going to be a Q&A, Alan? Is there Q&A at all behind this or no?
Hold on. Can I just want to say my parting words before I turn it over to Alex, who will monitor the Q&A.
Okay, never mind.
Alex? Alex?
I did want to make sure we double back. I know Alex Fabros wanted to add something, and I know he didn't get a chance to during the presentation. So if Alex Fabros is still on, I did want him to be able to give at least his tribute as a part, if he's still available.
I have problems with my video here trying to get on earlier. Did attach a mouse to my computer. But the paper I wrote on Domingo Los Banos was that he was born in Waiawa and he was raised on Kauai's pineapple plantations by his parents, Domingo and Lucia Los Banos, who moved from the Philippines to establish their lives in the Aloha State. Domingo graduated from Kauai High School in 1943. He joined U.S. Army in 1944. He was a member of the Hawaii Boys who joined the 1st Filipino Infantry Regiment when it was in Leyte and Samar in 1945. While in combat, he made a promise that if he survived, that he would devote his life to education. And when he returned to Hawaii, he started teaching young Filipinos. His prayers were answered, and after 2 years of military service, Los Banos left the U.S. Army to complete his BS degree in physical education at Massachusetts Springfield College, and also earned an MA degree from Columbia University in 1952. He was awarded a scholarship at Stanford University, and he's also a Fulbright scholar. I met Domingo Los Banos in 1994 when he came to visit me at San Francisco State University, and he wanted to create a film to honor the men of the 1st and 2nd Filipino Infantry Regiments. He wanted to preserve the history and memory of his fellow combat veterans and the 1st Filipino Infantry Regiment. And his dream was fulfilled when Untold Triumph was released in the early 2000s. With his wife Mary, they founded a children's home or children's house in Pearl City in Hawaii, and it's based on Christian values. He also established the Sariling Gawa, Our Own Work, a community-based youth-directed program focused on the development of Filipino youth. The organization celebrated 40 years this past March 2020. Another of his pet projects was the establishment of the Hawaii Plantation Village that sought to preserve the history of plantation life in Hawaii. In 2018, he was presented the Congressional Gold Medal for the 1st and 2nd Filipino Infantry Regiments, personally by Major General Anthony Takuba, another Hawaiian boy. Domingo is a FANHS National Trustee, and he passed away in March 2018. What I would like to say is that Domingo was a man of God. He was a mentor for me when it came to doing research on the 1st and 2nd Filipino Infantry Regiments. He made it more personal because of the stories that he shared with me of the men who were in combat. By the time he and I were working together on this, most of the men that I knew had passed away. He was a friend. I got to talk to him a couple of times before the end, and always he was thinking about his friends. He was thinking about FANHS, and he was thinking about, I guess his last thoughts to me was that he was thinking of the men he had served with during World War II. Those were his most precious memories. He was a good man. I loved him. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and so I think at this point, you know, with all the presentations that are done, we can definitely, like, everybody can turn on their screens again. You can see everybody's wonderful faces. But if there's anything that, like, you know, people want to just chime in and add, I think this is a great time, you know, that we're gathered here in one space. Any shout outs or maybe questions that people might have. So, you know, would love to hear from folks. And then I think somebody accidentally started sharing screen, or
who's that?
Is that?
Oi.
What? Is that?
Who's that?
That was Nina.
I just want to say thank you, Uncle Pete. You did great. He was all worried because yesterday he was anxious because he didn't get a link. But I said, Uncle Pete, it's tomorrow and it's today. But thank you, Uncle Pete, for joining us.
I just want to say, as one of the people that, you know, Alan and Edwina got me involved in this at the very, very beginning. This was only like beginning of June that we started talking about having a discussion on Filipino American history. So here we are now, and I just want to shout out to our techie guy, Alex, who's really done a great job in helping us navigate around Zoom. But I want to thank everybody that has met, because we've been meeting like twice a week since June from different chapters. And so again, I'm just glad that, you know, that concept that Alan and Edwina gave birth to is starting to grow, and I hope that we see more of this. Thank you. Are you recording? Oh, you are.
Yes, that's okay.
Okay. Edwina, there you are.
Yes.
Alan,
I guess I could.
Alan.
Oh, go ahead, Bray.
Alan, do you want to give them a little preview of what's happening tomorrow?
Tomorrow we're going to have the chapter showcase, and we have Barbara Bergano, who happens to be my beautiful sister up in the Pacific Northwest. Can you give us a little preview of what we're going to see tomorrow? Barbara Bergano.
Yeah, I can. Basically, we have 8 participating chapters who will be debriefing all participants about their experience, their stories, as they had either served in office, probably in their chapter. So we only have 5 minutes, and we can't say a whole lot because I know some chapters have a lot to talk about. We're going to have a 5-minute presentation followed by a Q&A after that. Alex Sena is going to be our techie guy and help us navigate through Zoom, of course. Luna Jamero is also going to be co-hosting, and she's going to be helping out with the timing and making sure we're all on time. That's pretty much it.
Also, I want to add that this is really the first time that FANHS has ever done anything like this when it comes to this kind of format. So there's always room for improvement. So if anyone has any ideas in which how we can make this better, since we've got the first one down, and we always like to ask for suggestions and how we can make this better. And if you do have a suggestion, make sure you tell Alan, not me. Tell Alan exactly what you want.
No. Hold on. Well, hold on. Let me say this.
Alan,
if you guys have anything good to say it to my team, okay? Because they're the ones that made it happen, okay? But now, if you have anything bad to say it to me. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Alan. One more thing
I'm sorry. One more time before she leaves. Allison, thank you. That was beautiful. Allison. Yes, you. That was beautiful. Thank you for your time, because I know you're very, very busy. And your daughter, wow, she could dance. Maybe one day she'll give us some tickets. Oh, is she here? Oh, she doesn't have to dance, but I just wanted to just give you a shout out because I know you're very, very busy. Thank you for spending time with us, Allison.
No, thank you for inviting me. I do have to run to another meeting, but I love y'all. Thank you, and I'll see you on August 1st for the next meeting, the big meeting. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye,
Al-
Allison.
Hey, Alan. Alan.
You got it.
One thing I wanted to mention is the chapter showcase that's going to be shown tomorrow is different from what's going to be presented in the general membership meeting on August 1st.
Yes.
So,
Barbara, what chapters are presenting tomorrow?
oh, you would ask me that. Okay, so let me see. It's Seattle, Santa Clara, Metro New York, Central Valley, Pennsylvania, Hampton Roads,
Stockton.
two more.
Stockton.
Stockton, and who else? I'm missing one. I don't have the list in front of me.
Los
That's all by
Angeles.
memory.
Los Angeles.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Los
LA.
Angeles.
LA.
Thank you. I said LA.
Could I add one thing here, please?
Sure.
You know, I like to collect things, and one of the things I enjoy collecting are photographs, mementos of Filipinos and Filipino Americans. You know, our history and many of the photographs of families are being dispersed because family members don't know how to take care of them. They don't understand the value of what they have. I just picked up this package of photographs of a family in Portland, Oregon for $10 on the internet. And I don't know who they are, but the thing is, this is about the fourth package of Filipino families that I've collected here in the past year. These are old photographs, old albums that people don't want anymore.
Wow.
What I'd like to say is that you should emphasize to your members and to your community that pictures are very important to documenting our history. It tells about the everyday lives of Filipinos here in the United States. So if they don't want their photographs, then they should donate it to the National to preserve, or to a university project to preserve,
Or to the museum.
or to a museum. But those items should not be thrown into the garbage. They should not be disposed of by selling it to me for $10 on the internet.
Hey, Alex, and you weren't even related to them, right? And you paid $10.
I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I want to point out that as the new museum director, one of the things that I'll be talking about on day 3, and I hope that you show up for day 3, we're going to announce how we're going to include or try to make the museum move toward this virtual realm and have the museum be the repository for Filipinos nationwide. We want the museum to be the community